Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Goleta City
Buenas
Council
tardes.
meeting of June 16th, 2026.
Buenas.
If we could we have a special
Hola.
presentation. We're going to have the Los Niños de la Flores girls come and help me with the Pledge of Allegiance. If they could come up. Are they here? Yes, there they are. Okay, if you'll all rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. Thank you. Thank you so much for helping us. Oh, it's beautiful. Thank you. Okay, if we could have roll call.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Reyes-Martin.
Here.
Councilmember Kiriakou.
Here.
Councilmember Kasdan is absent. Mayor Pro Tempore Smith.
Here.
And Mayor Perotti.
I'm here. If we could have our translators please come up and introduce yourself.
Buenas tardes, nada más un aviso que se está proporcionando interpretación simultánea entre el inglés y el español para esta junta. Si quisieran participar en esta reunión o escuchar todo lo que se va a presentar en español, tenemos algunos auriculares disponibles para que lo puedan hacer. Pueden alzar la mano, dejarnos saber, estaremos en el cuarto de junto para el resto de la reunión. So this is just an announcement to let you know that we have simultaneous interpretation available for today's meeting between Spanish and English. If you'd like to follow along with everything that's being shared tonight in Spanish, if you'd like to participate in Spanish, we have some listening devices available for you to do so. You can raise your hand, just let us know. We'll be in the room next door for the duration of the meeting. Thank you. Gracias.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Rosen, do we have anything to report from closed session?
Thank you, Mayor. For this evening's closed session read into the agenda at 5 p.m., there is no reportable action.
Okay. At this time, we'll have public forum. Anybody that wishes to speak to anything that's not on our agenda this evening?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I have no speaker slips. For those of you on the Zoom webinar who wish to speak to a non-agenda item, please use the raised hand icon and I will call on you. I'm seeing none, Mayor.
Okay. Then we will move on to City Manager's report
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That went quick.
and amendments and adjustments.
To ad-lib a little bit here. Yes, we do have an amendment tonight that we're recommending. So staff is recommending that item A8 on your consent calendar. This is an item recommending a 3-year contract for street sweeping services in the city. We're recommending that that be pulled off the agenda for tonight, and we will return to council at another council meeting.
And that needs to be, there needs to be a motion on that, correct, or no?
Mayor, I do not believe there needs to be a motion. The City Council could approve the rest of the consent calendar and remove item A8 from consideration.
Okay, thank you. Do you have anything to report?
I do, yeah, I just want to report on our Meet Me in Old Town events that are coming up starting tomorrow. But first, before I do that, a reminder that the team we're hosting, Team Austria, is playing tonight, so wish them good luck. They're up in Santa Clara at Levi Stadium playing Jordan at 9 o'clock tonight. That is their first game in the World Cup. But we have 2 Meet Me in Old Town events coming up back-to-back, a week apart, and that starts tomorrow, June 17th. We'd like to remind everyone, Meet Me in Old Town returns tomorrow night, and also the following Wednesday, June 24th. The city, in partnership with Santa Barbara South Coast Chamber of Commerce, we've planned 2 free evenings celebrating community, local businesses, and the unique spirit of Old Town Goleta. Come to the intersection of Pine Avenue and Hollister This is next to Community West Bank. The event's from 5 to 8. That's both tomorrow and a week from tomorrow on the 24th. And it's kind of a block party style event. The year's event features expanded space, additional activities, live entertainment, food, family-friendly experiences, and a World Soccer watch parties in the Cox Watch Party Lounge. So wondering what that is exactly. Sounds good. Attendees can expect live music, interactive games, activities, local food offerings, community vendors, seating areas, opportunity to explore Old Town businesses, and promotions. Families can also enjoy kid-friendly experiences, including games, art stations, mobile library, and the first 50 children to arrive each evening will receive a complimentary Kona Ice. So June 17th, tomorrow, 5 to 8. The music is Out of the Blue. And then June 24th, another party, same location.
You can also watch take a look at the new mural that's right there.
Yes. So if anyone hasn't noticed it, across the street, maybe up a half a block or so, or is it right across the street? Yeah, very cool mural on the wall that was painted using a grant, part of the grant series that the council gave to the Old Town businesses last year.
Great, thank you so much. Councilmember Reyes-Martin?
Thank you. Just on that note, I wanted to thank the large city staff that put together the watch party last Friday for the USA team's first match at the community center. I can't thank you all enough. The whole team, I know that was there, Marcos, Shannon, Blake, the entire Goleta Community Center staff. It was so amazing. I saw well over 200 people, so many kids. I had so many parents tell me, thank you, City of Goleta, for offering a really warm, family-friendly opportunity for young kids to get to experience watching the World Cup, all the kids in their jerseys. Thank you to Pepe's for the delicious food. It was truly a wonderful community event. So thank you to everyone who was part of putting that on.
Councilmember Carriaco?
And I want to apologize that I had to miss it, but I had a very good reason. My wife's daughter, Sydney, was graduating from the University of Denver with her master's in social work, and so I was out of state. So I was very sorry to miss that, but I also really want to extend appreciation to staff for putting that together, and all the community members that came out and attended as well. And then last couple things I'll say is I'm looking forward to the two Meet Me in Old Town events, getting to see Colombia and then Mexico play back-to-back weeks. That's going to be really cool. And then lastly, I just want to compliment our Mayor Pro Tem on her outfit choice tonight. Go Austria.
There you go. Yay. It was a fun watch party. We had a great time, so I'm glad. Sorry you missed it, but you were a little busy. Yeah. You needed to be there. Okay. All right, so now we're moving on to consent calendar.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. That's going to be item A1, approval of the City Council meeting minutes of June 2nd, 2026. Item A2, ratification of mayoral appointments to the Design Review Board and Public Art Review Board. Item A3, acceptance of the April 2026 investment transaction report. Item A4, resolution to hold a public hearing for street lighting benefit assessment for fiscal year 2026-27. Item A5, CPI adjustment of the fiscal year 2026-27 Goleta Library special tax rate. Item A6, Finance Department Professional Services Agreement and amendments with H.L. Cohen and Cohn, Hidden Later, De Lamas and Associates, and Rogers Anderson's Malady Scott LLP. Item A7, Annual Review and Adoption of the City's Investment Policy. Item A9, Award General Services Agreement for Traffic Striping and Pavement Marking Services to WGJ Enterprises, DBA PCI, Inc. Item A10, Public Works Professional and General Services Amendments with DKS Associates, Inc., Disability Access Consultants, LLC, El Encanto Pool Services, Inc., and County Sanitation Company, Inc. Item A11, Amendment Number 1, Professional Services Agreement with Good Samaritan Shelter Hedges House of Hope for interim housing beds. And item A12, Award of Fiscal Year 2026-27, Goleta City Grants and approval of Amendment Number 2 to the MDG Associates, LLC Professional Services Agreement.
Council wish to pull any item.
A12, just for a brief comment.
Okay.
Can we do that now?
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, this is the item on the city grants, and while I don't have questions, I just want to extend my appreciation to the staff team for shepherding this huge process along. I know it's Ms. Plummer's team, but Ms. Laer, Ms. Cure, the whole team. It's quite a process to get to what appears as just a consent item tonight. But it's multiple committees that review all of the city grant applications. I'm so glad that this is an ongoing commitment of this council to help support our local nonprofits in various areas, from nutrition to children and youth. So many great organizations doing important work in the community. So just wanting to share my appreciation.
Thank you. Okay, I'm looking for a motion, but remember that A8 was
I got it.
pulled.
I'll move consent items A1 through 7 and 9 through 12.
Councilmember Carriaco, I believe we still need public comment on the consent agenda.
I'm sorry. I'm just so excited to see the dancers. I always do this every year, don't I? Okay, if we have any public comment, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I have no speaker slips. For those of you on the Zoom webinar, please use the raised hand icon and I will call on you. I do have Gareth Kelly. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Please unmute yourself.
Hello, City Council. Firstly, sincere apologies I can't be with you tonight. I am coming to you from a hotel in Salt Lake City where I'm actually shooting a film. I did also get to go to the watch party last night and it was fantastic, so thank you all for that. And I did send in written comments, but I just wanted to make the effort to come and express my deepest gratitude to the grant committee for awarding our festival an award this year. We're really looking forward to Wild and Free Film Festival's second year in Goleta and our first as a non-profit. We're really thrilled about this event, and as I have told many of you, this is a long-term commitment for us, and we hope to really grow this event into something that the city can be proud of and that grows and grows and grows year on year. And we've got some exciting things already coming. So just to express my gratitude again to City Council and the Grant Committee. And thank you again for your support, and really hope to see you all in the fall and look forward to everything. Thanks again.
Thank you.
And I have no further speakers.
Okay, now we can make a motion.
Now I'll move items A1 through 7 and A9 through 12.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Council members, please lock in your votes. Councilmember Reyes-Martin.
Aye.
Councilmember Kiriakou.
Aye.
Councilmember Kasdan is absent. Mayor Pro Tempore Smith.
Yes.
And Mayor Perotti.
Aye. Okay, the ayes have it. Okay, moving on to our first presentation of the evening.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. That will be item B1, a proclamation of the City Council of the City of Goleta, California, recognizing the month of July 2026 as Parks and Recreation Month in the City of Goleta.
And Mayor Pro Tem Smith will be presenting.
Okay. All right. It is my pleasure to share this proclamation this evening. This is a proclamation of the City Council of the City of Goleta recognizing July 2026 as Parks and Recreation Month. Whereas the City of Goleta recognizes the month of July as Parks and Recreation Month, an initiative of the National Recreation and Park Association, and embraces the 2026 theme, The Power of Connectivity, Play, Community, Nature, and Belonging. And whereas the power of connectivity reflects the essential role that Parks and Recreation plays in bringing people together across generations, cultures, backgrounds, strengthening civic engagement, and fostering meaningful relationships throughout the Goleta community. Whereas the power of play enhances physical health, mental well-being, and lifelong learning by providing inclusive programs, safe spaces, and recreational opportunities for youth, adults, and seniors alike. And whereas the power of community is demonstrated through the city parks, facilities, events, and volunteer programs that create shared experiences, build neighborhood pride, and promote collaboration among residents local organizations, and businesses. And whereas the power of nature enriches the quality of life in Goleta by preserving open spaces, protecting local habitats, and offering access to natural areas that inspire stewardship, environmental awareness, and appreciation for the outdoors. And whereas the power of belonging ensures that parks and recreation services are inclusive and welcoming to all, providing equitable access and opportunities that allow every resident to feel valued, connected, and supported within our public spaces. And whereas the City of Goleta Parks and Recreation Division works year-round to enhance the health, happiness, and resilience of our community through innovative programs, well-maintained parks, and partnerships that reflect the diverse needs of Goleta's residents. And whereas the U.S. House of Representatives has designated July as Parks and Recreation Month, and the City of Goleta recognizes the benefits derived from parks and recreation resources. So therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Goleta does hereby recognize July 2026 as Parks and Recreation Month in the City of Goleta. Approved this 16th day of June and signed by Mayor Paula Perotti. Congratulations.
Okay. All right, here we go. Ready? Big smiles. 1, 2, 3. And this way. 1, 2, 3.
You'd like to say a few words?
Yes.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. I'll let you grab your seats first, sorry. Okay, my name is Justin Wilkins. I'm the Parks and Recreation Manager for the City of Goleta. On behalf of the Parks and Recreation Division and our community, thank you for this proclamation recognizing July as Parks and Recreation Month. Each year, Parks and Recreation Month is an opportunity to celebrate the spaces, programs, and experiences that brings our community together and remind us that parks and recreation are truly where community happens. This year's 2026 National Parks and Recreation Month theme, The Power of, highlights the power of parks and recreation to strengthen communities, support health and well-being, and create places where everyone can connect and belong. Our team is especially excited for this year's celebration as we continue building momentum across our park system. We recently celebrated the opening of our new splash pad at Johnny D. Wallace Neighborhood Park, creating another place for families to gather and play. We're also continuing our partnership with library services in the park, expanding opportunities for learning, recreation, and community connection. The City of Goleta's parks, open spaces, and programs provide residents opportunities to enjoy the outdoors, stay active, and experience natural beauty that makes our community unique. Over the next week, we'll release our 2026 activity guide, featuring free and low-cost activities for residents of all ages. We encourage everyone to get outside, try something new, and enjoy everything that Goleta has to offer. We thank you again to the Council for your continued support of Parks and Recreation and for recognizing July's Parks and Recreation Month. To learn more about the City of Goleta's parks, open spaces, and recreational opportunities, we encourage you to visit our website at www.cityofgoleta.gov or org. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Do you have any public speakers?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I have no speaker slips. For those of you on the Zoom webinar who wish to speak to this item, please use the raised hand icon and I will call on you. And I'm seeing none.
Okay, thank you.
And that takes us to item B2, a proclamation of the City Council of the City of Goleta, California, declaring June 18th, 2026 as Fiesta Ranchera Day in the City of Goleta.
Thank you. And I'd like to ask Colin Hayward, the El Presidente 2026 Old Fiesta Days, and Denise Stanford, and anybody else from the Goleta Valley Historical Society would like to come up at the same time. And then after, then we'll have the spirit and junior spirit. I'll go over to you. See, I'm going to have that come back for that. Not sure how I'm going to do that. Proclamations here, so I'd like to start off reading them. Okay, a proclamation of the City Council of the City of Goleta, California, declaring June 18, 2026 as Fiesta Ranchera Day in the City of Goleta. Whereas Goleta and Santa Barbara communities will celebrate the 103rd annual Old Spanish Days Fiestas celebration from August the 5th to August 9th, 2026. And whereas the Goleta community welcomes Fiesta Ranchera and celebrates the 18 years of tradition and collaboration between Old Spanish Days and the Goleta Valley Historical Society. And whereas Fiesta Ranchera Day brings people together and celebrates and shared history and culture of Rancho La Patera. And whereas Rancho La Patera was the site of Goleta's first Fiesta event, Fiesta at Stowe House, August 3rd, 1968. And, let's see, Old Spanish Days dedicated to honoring and preserving the area's rich history, spirit, culture, heritage, and traditions. And whereas Goleta Valley Historical Society, stewards of Rancho La Patera, preserve, interpret, and foster research of the history of Goleta Valley and the Stowe family, sharing this treasured landmark from the golden era of California ranching and providing a unique and historic gathering place for the community. And whereas the City of Goleta will again play host to an official Old Spanish Day Fiesta event to be held June 18th, that's Thursday, this coming Thursday, at Rancho La Patera and Stowe House, which will feature performances by the Spirit of Fiesta and the Junior Spirit and local entertainers. Now, therefore, it be resolved that the City Council of the City of Goleta does hereby proclaim June 18, 2026 as Fiesta Ranchera Day in the City of Goleta, approved this 16th day of June 2026, and signed by myself, Paula Perotti. So I'm going to give you each one. Spirit and Junior Spirit to please come up. I have certificates of recognition, and then we're going to, oh, thank you. And then we'll have you say a few words, take pictures, have you say a few words, and performance, which is, favorite. I mean, you guys are special too, but all right, come on up. So, Junior Spirit, certificate of recognition. The certificate of the City Council of the City of Goleta, California, presents this certificate of recognition, acknowledging Penny Hernandez. Oh, wait, I'm doing the Spirit first. Yeah. Are you the, wait, let me, did I get that? No, you're Penny, right? Okay, I've got it right, I'm sorry. Acknowledging Penny Hernandez, 2026 Junior Spirit Fiesta. Penny Hernandez is 10 years old and has been dancing since she was 3. She has a true passion for flamenco, along with hip hop, jazz. She plays volleyball and has proudly placed in her school spelling bee 3 years in a row, reaching the county level this year. Wow. Penny attends Our Lady of Mount Carmel, where her faith in God continues to guide her. She loves spending time with her friends and family, walking her dogs, and enjoying the outdoors on her family's ranch. One day, she hopes to become a dance instructor and inspire young kids to build confidence and express themselves. So the City Council of the City of Goleta proudly honors 2026 Junior Spirit of Fiesta, Penny Hernandez, signed by myself, Paula Perotti, Mayor. Okay, we have one more. Okay, the City Council of the City of Goleta, California presents this certificate of recognition acknowledging Jenna Ramirez, 2026 Spirit of Fiesta. Congratulations. Jenna Ramirez is a 19-year-old student currently attending Santa Barbara City College, where she is pursuing a degree in radiology. She began dancing at the age of 2 and discovered her passion for flamenco at 8 years old. Her dedication to this form has taken her to Spain, where she had the opportunity to train with elite dancers while deepening both her cultural appreciation and technical skills. Throughout this journey, she has learned the importance of hard work, resilience, never give up on your goals. She hopes to inspire others by expressing emotion, strength, and confidence on stage. She wants young dancers to see that it's okay to be bold and embrace their individuality and pursue their passion with courage and determination. So the City Council of the City of Goleta proudly honors 2026 Spirit of Fiesta, Jenna Ramirez, signed by myself, Paula Perotti. Okay, so we're going to get a picture with everybody. So let's just come on over here and we'll all come back out. And first we'll have you, if you want to say something. Okay. You want to hold it in the picture? Yes, if you're okay with it.
If the people that did the pipes too, you want to, like everyone.
Everybody nice and tight.
There you go. Okay.
Tighten it up, tighten it up, tighten it up. Column move in a little bit. There we go. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, here we go. Ready? Big smiles. 1, 2, 3.
All right. Can we have Penny come forward? Come to this side. Mayor right in the middle. Jenna right next to her. And then everyone just squeeze in a little bit more. Perfect. All right. Let's see if this works. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Perfect.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. We really appreciate today, every year, that you get to help us celebrate the traditions that we have fostered over the last 18 years. And I want to say that I'm appreciative of your support of Goleta Valley Historical Society and the traditions that we continue to bring and foster and enjoy in the community of Goleta. Thank you so much. We appreciate this honor very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, City Council. I'm Colin Hayward, President of Old Spanish Days 2026. On behalf of the board and everybody involved with Old Spanish Days, thank you so much for this proclamation. Being partnerships with the Stowe House and Goleta Valley Historical Society has been a long-term endeavor for us. We appreciate it. We enjoy it. brings together food and drinks and dance and just community. So we really appreciate the proclamation and the recognition that you do every year for this event. And this year's theme is Fiesta Forever. Hopefully this is what exactly will happen with Fiesta Ranchera. Viva la Fiesta.
Viva Fiesta. Thank you.
We now are presenting to you our 2026 official
Beautiful.
Fiesta poster. This was designed and painted by Pedro de la Cruz, a Santa Barbara local artist. And we have a, let's go ahead and give it to the right now.
You might want to turn it around so then everybody can see it, maybe. Yeah. I think that, yeah, that's great. Yeah. It's beautiful.
We just tilted against the
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's okay. They don't- Who walks through his name? Thank you. Okay, do we have some girls that want to dance this evening?
Se paga todo en este mundo y irte sin pagarte por seguro que no te hace morir. Ya tú verás por todo lo que hiciste tú conmigo. El cielo ha de llegarte un día el castigo y entonces tú sabrás lo que llorar, como quisiera devolver el tiempo, como quisiera devolver el tiempo, a decirte lo que pienso. Con todo el rencor que siento, pero ya que no es así, por la mano de tu tía, yo te juro que algún día, más que yo vas a sufrir, por todo lo que hiciste tú conmigo, del cielo de llegar un gran castigo. Y entonces tú sabrás lo que llorar, todo lo que hiciste tú conmigo, todo lo que hiciste tú conmigo, el cielo de llegar, y entonces tú sabrás lo que llorar. Todo lo que hiciste tú conmigo, el cielo va a llegar, y entonces tú sabrás lo que lloro. Todo lo que hiciste tú conmigo, el cielo va a llegar, y entonces tú sabrás lo que llorar.
Penny Hernandez, Junior Spirit, thank you. Jana Ramirez, Spirit.
To this chair a little bit. No, I'm great.
Thank you. Councilmember Carriaco, did you have something you'd like to say?
Well, first of all, just another round of applause for the two dancers, our spirit and our junior spirit. And I really want to thank both Old Spanish Days and the Goleta Valley Historical Society for continuing to put this event on so many years later. I think it's always important to recognize the people that kind of help kick things off. And so a few people I really want to make sure get mentioned. Daisha Harwood had a lot to do with making this event a success. Rhonda Henderson, Robin Cedarloff, Roger and Debbie Aceves. Thank you to everyone that had a role in getting this wonderful tradition started. And thank you especially now to those of you who are keeping the tradition alive.
Thank you. Do we have any speakers?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have no speaker slips for this item. For those of you on the Zoom webinar, please use the raised hand icon and I will call on you. And I'm seeing none, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. It's going to be hard to follow that. Yeah.
See you Thursday.
All right.
If you haven't bought your tickets, buy them now. They're going fast.
That'll take us to item C1, adoption of the City of Goleta operating budget and capital improvement program budget for fiscal year 2026-27 mid-cycle and 5-year capital improvement program, approving updates to the personnel rules, approving certain benefits and side letter agreements with SEIU Local 620.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Okay, so this is a public hearing, and so we will open the public hearing, which I'll do right now, and staff will make their presentation. Then we'll have questions from council and the public, and any staff responses, and then more council questions if needed, and then I'll close the public testimony portion of the hearing. Council will go into deliberation, close the public hearing, and city clerk to read you're going to be reading the recommendation this time? It's a lot,
Yes.
right?
Yes, I will read the recommendation.
Okay,
Thank you.
and then a motion and roll call vote. Okay, thank you.
All right, well, good evening, Mayor, council members, and community members. I am Luke Rio, City of Goleta's Finance Director. Pleased to present the final recommended fiscal year 2026-27 mid-cycle operating and capital improvement program budgets for the 5-year capital improvement program, and also a set of related personnel updates for your consideration and adoption tonight. So we are joined here by some of our department heads, staff, should there be any further questions or details that is needed on any of the items that are being presented tonight. Let's see here. So to keep us organized, this presentation is going to be told in 5 parts here. Part 1 is a brief recap of our budget process and the May 19th budget workshop. Part 2 will cover the personnel requests, including follow-up items City Council asked for at the workshop. And then Part 3 here is the final recommended budget. But importantly, the base budget that's in this presentation and also in the packet does not include the personnel requests. So you can see the budget on its own footing. Now, Part 4 covers other related personnel updates, and there will be a slide just kind of highlighting the resolutions that are associated with those items. And then Part 5 is going to as a short preview of future items that are for later discussion, for which is no action is requested tonight on that. So let's begin with Part 1, which is going to be on the workshop recap. So this on the screen here is just a high-level summary of the budget development timeline, plus what the 4 May 19th feedback items that were primarily discussed at the time. So just for some context on what tonight is and what's not, so the city budget's on a 2-year cycle. Last June, on June 17, 2025, the City Council adopted the 2-year budget plan for fiscal year 25-26 and 26-27, which aligned with the 2-year strategic plan that was adopted back on May 6, 2025, and also with each department's work program. Since then, the mid-cycle process began on February 3rd, 2025, when staff brought you the preliminary 5-year forecast and budget priority setting workshop. That's where we laid out the approach, kind of that right-sized true-up to the original adopted plan. And then council also gave some direction on setting priorities for the new year at that workshop, specifically including, with the 2 new facilities that came online, the Goleta train station that will be opening soon in the late summer, and then the splash pad that was recently opened. And then also supporting the continued deferral of the $250,000 general fund contribution to the Housing in Lieu Fund. And I also wanted to mention that forecast at the time also, the preliminary forecast did flag, a potential long-term challenge in fiscal year 28-29, but that has since with the revised updates is currently no longer projected. And then from February 17th through May 5th, we had our annual work program workshops, which gave an update on department's priorities and city council feedback. And then on May 19th, staff brought back the preliminary mid-cycle budget to you, which reflected updated numbers, again, updated revenues, mainly from fully recognizing our transaction use tax, property tax, updated transient occupancy tax, and then also our investment income. And then so tonight, again, is mainly going to be focused on just kind of responding to the feedback that was received on May 19th. And so we did put this on here, some of the 4 key items. So again, with personnel requests, council asked for a written business case for each position, full vacancy and recruitment picture, and what the budget looks like shown both with and without the request. So we've provided all 3, and so we'll cover those in a few slides. It's also more detailed in the staff report. With economic outlook and revenue risk, council asked us to continue to monitor the transient occupancy tax leading indicators, and also to identify any cost reductions if conditions do deteriorate. With reserves and deferred maintenance, council supported the facility reserve policy framework, just with that baseline $1 million baseline, and then asked that facility maintenance also be considered as part of a holistic deferred maintenance strategy along with pavement. And then on pavement and capital improvement program, council requested more detail on the pavement funding gap, value engineering, and the unfunded portion of the CIP. And so those are that item would be part of that whole long-term part 5 that we had just talked about. Let's see here. So we're going to take this in order now, starting now with personnel requests in part 2, which actually I'm going to turn it over to our city manager, Robert Nisbet, who's going to kick it off discussing these requests.
Thank you, Mr. Rijo. Yes, Madam Mayor, members of council, I just wanted to underscore a little bit more what Luke just said about the direction we received. The direction is summarized on page 3 of the staff report, and he just went through each of the bullet points, and we wanted to make sure we captured the direction from the workshop so we could be responsive to the council as you consider the budget tonight. But certainly a lot of the conversation was about the personnel requests. So you can see the bullet point there, and as Mr. Rijo said, the request from council was for staff to bring back a business case for each of the positions and each of the job classes. Also to bring back a current vacancy list of vacancies so that council could consider any new positions in the context of current vacancies that we have. And then finally, it was also asked to make sure that the numbers are very clear on both the general fund and other funds if positions are paid for out of other funds, and kind of in the context of our reserves and the bottom line for recommending a balanced budget for this year. So that's all contained in the staff report. The vacancy table is table 3. It's on page 9, and we listed, it's a snapshot of every vacancy as it exists right now. And I would say we took the direction as a soft hold, not a hard hold, but a soft hold, because we did make the comments that recruitments are in various stages of the process, and so one recruitment might be going to interviews the day after the council met. So we allowed that process to continue. But generally, if a position had not been advertised yet, or an offer had been, it was at those 2 crucial steps. Nothing had been done, or we were about to make an offer, we did hold those. We figured we could wait for 4 weeks, and so those were held. So those are all listed. We're happy to take questions when the council gets to questions and deliberation and how that fits into your overall thought. And even though it doesn't need to be a part of the motion, wherever the council lands at the end, we also want to make clear that the direction is to unhold recruitments at that point if that is the direction of council once you get past the budget. On the requests, there were 2 new positions and there are 4 reclasses. And the focus last time was on the 2 new positions and 2 of the reclasses. So I just wanted to emphasize that. The other 2 are in the library. They were mentioned briefly, but so much of the focus was not on them that I could certainly see how they got lost in the shuffle. And the council might be saying, are those new? They were shown there. The amount is very small. It is shown, I'm looking at it for both positions, $2,900 for the year. But I just wanted to emphasize, we're talking about 2 positions and 4 reclasses. And there's a summary of the business case for each. The 2 new positions, a housing analyst in the planning department, and also an inspector in the public works department to work primarily on the paving projects. Our 2 department heads are not here tonight. Mr. Imhoff is actually up in the Bay Area, and he will be attending the Austria-Jordan game. But Ms. Wells, Ann Wells, I see her in the back from Advanced Planning, is here. She can certainly take any questions on Advanced Planning's work plan and how there is a relationship between all the work plans in the planning department and how this position will, in housing, but help balance the workload in all of the divisions. And then Ms. Bullen is also on vacation, and so Autumn Glazer is here to take any questions about the paving program and how the inspector position, as we introduced it last time, cost neutral. She can certainly take questions and add a little more color to how that would work in practice should the council go with that position. And then Ms. Plummer is here on the reclass for the emergency manager position, the 2 library positions, and then the other reclass was in the housing division as well, reclassing it from a senior analyst to a housing manager. So I just wanted to give that context that we got that direction. We wanted to be responsive to what we heard, and we're ready to take any questions when we circle back to the personnel requests. But with that, Mr. Rio has more to his report. There's more than just the personnel request, so I'll turn it back to him.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Nisbet.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Nisbet. So continuing on, so this is a high-level summary table of the personnel request, just outlining the budgetary impacts. What we've done is we've consolidated both the new position requests along with the reclasses. So again, I won't repeat those positions. They were just discussed here, but overall what we're seeing total cost to the general fund, while it may be about $326,000, but really it's being offset with recommending reducing these intern positions that have not been filled for over a year, and also adjusting the contracted services for pavement. So really the total net fiscal impact to the general fund is approximately $138,000. And then with special revenue funds, with the county per capita, those are just really minor. They're at $2,900. So when you factor all that in, you're looking total all funds about $141,000. So the next slide just kind of really highlights kind of the same information, but just really summarizes the department justifications. That's further detailed in the staff report. So these are, again, organized in a way by each department here. And again, I won't go into the specifics here, but if council does have any questions about more information about each of these requests, please feel free to let us know and we can provide you that. So citywide authorized positions. So this is just a snapshot of going back a few years and also what our current position count, full-time equivalent, looks like. And really also what it does factor in, there is the very last column, what our total position count would look like if those personnel requests were approved. So if those personnel requests were approved, that would move our total FTE count from 123.625 to about 125.625. Just for context, our headcount has essentially been flat for the last 2 years after growing in the prior period. So this is really a targeted 2-position adjustment, not necessarily a broad expansion. And then as just mentioned a few minutes ago, council also asked for the vacancy and recruitment picture. And so these requests can be seen against the positions we are that we're currently holding vacant here, and that's in these next two slides. So in this slide, this is only showing the full-time equivalents as of June 9th, 2026. The way this is organized, it's by fund, and so you can see the positions that are primarily supported by the general fund that are listed there, about 509,100. That's the fully annualized cost of those positions. So I should just, quick recap on that. So the way the city budgets, we do budget fully annualized cost in our budget for each position. We don't phase them in. That is a practice we used to do a long time ago, but we found there was just too much risk with that. So moving down this list, you'll see that there's solid waste. There's two positions there, and you can see that amount about 356,700. And then again, total vacancies with Buellton Library about 110,000. So total together, there's about 7.5 FTEs. Total all funds, it's about almost close to $1 million at 975,800. And just, again, just want to reiterate, these annual costs also includes benefits too, so it's fully loaded. Then the next slide here is the same picture, but really just for our hourly part-time interns. So the general fund shows about 7 positions at about 110,800, and then the library fund shows about 3 of them at 60,600 for a total of about 10 vacancies in this category. So again, these are interns, department aides, and even some of them are maintenance assistant support. I did want to note here that we did include this footnote here. You'll notice that for city council, while we have it authorized, there is actually no budget that's programmed for those positions since they're funded out of each council member's conferences, meetings, and travel allotment. So should council ever request one, we would work that internal budget adjustment entry to fund the intern position. So that completes the personnel picture that council had asked for. So now let me show you what the budget looks like with these requests when they're included. So this is a view with and without without the personnel requests. We did include what the budget did look like from the preliminary mid-cycle workshop on May 19th, 2000, that we had a few weeks ago, so you can kind of see the changes, over time here. One thing I did want to point out, you'll notice that the net operating revenue shifted from 673,169 from the workshop, to what's being recommended without personnel requests, the 592,269. That largely has to deal with the benefits adjustments and recommendations and true-ups that is included in the final budget numbers. And so that's where that small discrepancy lies down there. Again, the very last column, that is if we were to include the personnel requests, and this is purely on the general fund, it would increase the ongoing expenditures about 138,280. It still does leave a positive ongoing, net operating revenue about 453,000. It does stay structurally balanced. So without that request, that margin is about 592,000. So, anyhow we look at it, these requests are affordable with our ongoing revenue streams. Okay, so given that, here's staff's recommendation on the personnel. So we do recommend approval of these 2 positions and the 4 reclassifications as permanent full-year appointments. Within the staff report, there was kind of these other considerations that were looked at as alternatives, but we did find that just based on how to hire and also attract, that it would be staff's recommendation to ultimately do it as a full year appointments. So again, this slide just highlights what staff is recommending. So that you got your 6 personnel changes, 2 FTE increases, net general fund impact 138,000. Again, the ongoing revenues over expenditures is about, what those requests included stays about $453,000. Okay, let's see here. So then we're actually going to be, that concludes part 2. So we're actually going to go into part 3 now. This is the final recommended budget itself. Now, as a reminder that these numbers and these figures do not include any of those personnel request numbers. So what's shown here is just kind of going over high-level updates to the, to the numbers from the May 19th budget workshop. So factoring the benefit enhancements. And so it was mentioned about long-term disability. And then there'll be attached resolutions related to this, but this is the staff's recommending, the maximum monthly benefit increase from $6,000 to $9,000 for all eligible employees. That's about approximately $7,000 per year. Short-term disability, that's the employer-paid benefit recommended for unrepresented management and executive employees. About 66.67 of salary, 2,500 weekly maximum through a city's pooled program, approximately 18,000 per year. That's recommended just for recruitment and and remaining competitive with hiring, and then health allowances. So that's just given the ongoing increase with health allowances. Staff has factored into the budget and recommending to increase those allowances starting July 1st, 2026, specifically for the family tier, and then the +1 in family tiers in January 1st, 2027. That's estimated at approximately $55,900 per year. So with those benefits included, it's about an $80,900 per year in ongoing cost, which is factored in already into the final recommended budget. Okay, moving on here is a very high-level snapshot of it's an all funds and general fund summary. So when looking at the top line here, general fund, you can see what the total revenues look like when you compare it to our original adopted budget that was made last June for the same fiscal year. So you'll see that general fund revenues are projected to increase about 4.8%. That's about $2.5 million. Again, that increase was primarily led by our transaction and use tax, Measure B, along with a little bit of TOT and also our investment income. Special revenue funds, you'll see it dipping down about $3.7 million, about a decrease of 15.6%. So these are kind of a little bit more unique because special revenue funds do include grants that are one-time in nature, and then a lot of times there are true-ups or just adjustments that are made in special revenue funds. I want to say a bulk of these do represent development impact fees and also other grants, but we'll actually have a slide on categories of what makes up that number. And then going back down to all city funds expenditures, you can see there the original adopted budget at $53.2 million, the revised at $61.6 million, about a change of 8.4 or a 15.7% increase. And again, just want to reiterate, in that number includes lots of about one-time expenditures in there. And so it's not necessarily, it can appear to look like a deficit, but it's not. The one-time expenditures are supported by one-time funds and fund balance that we have set aside. And then the same story with special revenue funds. You can see we do have adjustments here on the expenditure side. And again, this can be due to just the timing of grant revenues being received or expenditures or timing of CIP projects. And so a lot of times these get pushed out or deferred out. Okay, so now let me break down the general fund revenues here by source. So again, this chart here just does a comparison, again, where we were at originally, and then what we're recommending. Let's see here, and it compares what our final recommended mid-cycle adjustment is. You can see that it's again $2.5 million. Again, the largest driver is transaction use tax. We did have a small negative adjustment, and that was with our cannabis business tax. That is kind of consistent across what's going on in other communities with that. But overall, $2.5 million. Transient occupancy tax still remains our largest revenue generator, about 26%, and now followed by our transaction use tax Measure B, around 24%. So here's the same revenue picture for all funds. So this is now categorizing it. What we've done is we grouped the special revenue funds into these fund category types. So starting, we've already talked about the general fund, and then we got the special revenue fund. So I should, reiterate. So normally we would technically call all these categories special revenue funds, but to pull out certain major fee categories, we pulled them out. So what's representing in special revenue funds right now, I believe it's mostly some of the transportation sales tax revenues like Measure A, gas tax, SB1. And then we got development impact fees. And so you can see that, original budget revenue estimate was $8.9 million. It's been revised down to 4.5. Again, these numbers will continue to change. Actually, we'll have a slide on that just because we're in the process of updating our DIF funds. Grants, you can see that there's no change on that. Special assessments, that includes our solid waste fees, or not solid waste, it includes our street lighting and library. So small adjustment on that, just a true up there. And then RDA and other, I believe that is specifically to the redevelopment, the successor agency to the redevelopment agency funds there. Let's see, now moving on to general fund expenditures. So kind of that same snapshot told in the same way, comparing the original numbers from last June to our final recommended budget. And again, these do not include those personnel requests. This shows general fund expenditures by department. So again, general fund only. Let's see, really what the story here is, it's about a 15.7% increase, and really what's driving that number is the CIP, 5.8 million, where we had $0 program from the general fund. Again, that is one-time funds that have been set aside. A majority of that is going to the San Jose Creek Fish Passage project, and also 100,000 related to the Lake Los Caneros footbridge. And so, let's see here. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and move on to the next slide, which kind of gives a more truer picture for each department with all funds. So this includes what the department looks like on a budgetary basis when all funds are considered. Some of the ones that I want to highlight here is you'll see that the library significantly shifts on their total sources of funds or expenditures, is primarily because they're supported by special revenue funds. So this takes into account general fund and all the special funds that are supported. That supports them. Same with public works, and for their department, they do have a large amount of special revenue funds that support their department, primarily related to transportation revenues. But overall, you can see the picture here about, we were originally about 80.9 million, mid-cycle recommended budget totaling 76.6 million. Okay, then that leads me to summarizing a few program highlights within these totals. So just kind of want to remind City Council and the public that this mid-cycle update does preserve all the program funding levels that were adopted in the original two-year budget with minor adjustments. There are more details in the staff report, but some of them just to call out here. With pavement maintenance, all funds, we continue to give about 6.25 million. With the street maintenance program, about 8.95 million across all funding sources. Police services is funded, at 13.2 million. We have homeless support around 1.02 million, which includes $475,000 to partner agencies. Parks and open space, we got about 3.97 million in funding there. Economic development, 432,000. The city grant program, 250,000. Support to other agencies, 486,000. So the new ones that were factored in here, Goleta train station, that's a brand new one, 426,000 has been programmed there. Okay, now let me go to the next slide, which is going to show where our general fund looks like over the next 5 years. This has been slightly updated since our last update, but I did want to say that our general fund, based on current assumptions, we're structurally balanced in all 5 years. Net operating revenue averages $385,000 across the 5 years. Again, largely status quo service levels. We're not assuming any new FTEs in the future years. Doesn't factor in restoring deferred maintenance or programs. And again, it's such a tight margin there. I want to say, I think I have it in the staff report, but when you factor in the personnel requests, it'll leave our average about 241,000. So we would still be projected to be structurally balanced. It would just be a kind of a tight margin if you were, if we factored in those, but in additionally, in the future years, if you wanted to increase service levels somewhere else, we would have to consider probably looking at either new revenue sources or trade-offs in the future. But as of right now, we're projected to be structurally balanced. Okay, that leads me to the next slide here. This is the general fund balance and reserves. So this is a snapshot based on current projections and assumptions. This chart here just summarizes that, in the yellow there represents our contingency reserves. And then in the blue is our other reserves and one-time fund balance. So we continue to meet 33% of our operating expenditures. So that's a policy target that City Council had set. It's expected to be fully funded across the next 5 years. Again, that contingency reserve is there for safety and stability, immediate funding. It serves as a liquidity need. if there's any tax delays or any economic downturns, or even delays on grant reimbursements. There is, part of the policy does allow some flexibility should there be a need for capital, one-time capital or some revenue-enhancing type of economic development project. In the policy, it does allow up to 1/3 to be borrowed, but we do have to come up with the repayment plan. Okay, let's see here. Oh, and I did want to, this number, the estimated actuals, and this will continue to get refined as we're closing out this fiscal year end and go through our audit, because we'll know our final revenue amounts here, I want to say in August, and then also with our expenditures, and then we will go through our carryover process, and then also, so then we can truly determine what those amounts be. But I want to say, I'm pretty confident that these numbers will hold steady, if not, slightly adjusted, but we'll be reporting back to City Council on that. I want to say we'll have better numbers in September, and then also first quarter in December, where we'll have, I want to say, our audited numbers. Okay, so now that.
And if I could just jump in, Luke, Madam Mayor, members of council, we were requested also, if you could go back to that slide for just a second, we were also this is looking ahead in our projections for our reserve. We were also asked to do a look back at the reserve, say, for the past 5 years, and how that is tracked. And so I don't know if Mr. Rio has it queued up now, but when we get into questions and deliberation, we did prepare a slide so we can do a 5-year look back, which I think is pretty illuminating as well. So that's ready to go when we get there.
Yeah, actually, since we're on this topic, I can turn to that slide real quick here. So let's see if it's going to show. 1 second. Okay. Yeah, so we've prepared, this is focusing on the contingency reserve and a look back of the last 5 years here, going back to fiscal year 2021. You'll see this in the labels here, ACT for ACFR, that's the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, so that means it's an audited number. But we've continued to meet the policy target of that amount, and you can see it growing year over year, and that's primarily just due to the, our ongoing expenditures just increasing over time, and we've been successful enough to continue to fund those amounts.
While we're on this slide, can I ask you a quick question about this? So when you say that we're meeting the policy target in these years, what was the target, and then this is what it actually was?
Yeah, great question.
Am I making sense? Do
Yeah.
you understand my question?
Yeah, no, I thought about how to show this because the way our city calculates our contingency reserve is actually based on that, the budgeted amounts, and we make a finding of what is considered ongoing expenditures, and that's how it's calculated, and so it carries into the fiscal year. We don't adjust it because, there could be some type of, during the fiscal year, some other adjustments. So it's just really based on the initial budget amount. So I would say we meet that policy target at 33% at the time of adopting the original budget.
I see. So another way of putting it is there's always enough in the reserve to meet that 33%, and anything over that just is part of the general fund.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would say too that let's just say if we use some of this contingency reserve, we would probably come to council and say, I'll use the mid-cycle. We should be at 17 million, but we're gonna be at 15 million, and then we're gonna recommend a funding plan to replenish. Yeah.
I'll follow up on that just really quickly. So if we were in a situation where we had to use some of that reserve, there's an emergency of some sort, we have a policy where it has to be replaced within a certain amount of time. Do you know what that policy is? I can't remember.
Yeah, Mayor, pretty good question. Yes, it's 5 years.
5 years to pay it back. Okay, thank you. Councilmember Carriaco.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to thank the finance staff for putting together this slide so quickly. This was something that I'd asked for. And I think this really illustrates two things. One is that we have an incredibly careful and cautious reserve policy. You look at other jurisdictions, and I won't name them, but you look at other jurisdictions, and it's not uncommon for 25%, or sometimes even less. And I think being a smaller city, being a newer city that didn't get to have decades and decades of things like redevelopment agencies to give us an opportunity to build that infrastructure and to build that that history of saving and putting money away for a rainy day, it really is incumbent upon us to have a strong reserve. And so I think this just really illustrates a level of fiscal discipline, because going from, to basically, almost double our reserves over this period of time, I think, we could have adjusted that policy at any time. We could have, provided opportunities to go down to 25% under certain scenarios. But, when we had COVID hit, when we had other emergencies hit, we froze positions, we made hard choices. And so what we're being rewarded with today is a very, very healthy reserve. And I think this slide does a really good job of illustrating both the amount of money that we have set aside for a rainy day, but also just kind of provides, I think, for the public more confidence that we're not just like looking for opportunities to spend any chance we get. Because if we wanted to be more aggressive, we would certainly be within our rights, and there's certainly an argument to be made for that. So I'm really, really happy to see this. Do you have, I don't expect you to have this available, but do you have the ability to put into perspective what that 17 million would mean in terms of, if we suddenly just had zero money coming in, like how many net days of operating would that represent? Would that get us through 3 months? Would that get us through 2 months? What would that mean, kind of where the rubber meets the road, so to speak?
Yeah, a great question. So if everything was, if our spend down was exactly equal, it'd be about 4 months. Another way to look at it too, though, is, it can extend to 5, it just really depends. But yeah, if you equalize all of our expenditures, it'd be about 4 months.
Okay. Thank you. I guess the last thing I'll say is I'm really appreciating also hearing that just since we had our workshop, you've been able to look at our fiscal picture, and you do not at this point see a delta between our revenue and expense, where the expense exceeds our projected revenue in 2029. So I'm really glad to hear that has worked out as we've gotten more data on how things are performing, and that we're doing better on plan. Thank you.
Let's see. All right, we're going to go back to, we were starting at the capital improvement program here. So over the next few slides here, there's going to be this disclaimer. We did update the capital improvement program, but it's going to be further refined and discussed at a future council meeting on July 21st. But we, did want to, we do have appropriations that are being recommended as part of this. So again, CIP project budgets will continue to be further refined. We have a 5-year capital improvement program that's been attached. There's a 5-year CIP project list, which contains our active priority projects, along with a long-term CIP project list, and then our 5-year CIP budget. Did really want to emphasize too, those big 6 priority projects, they're fully funded. Okay, so summary of the new CIP budget appropriation. So this is looking at specifically for fiscal year 26-27, what we're asking council to legally appropriate. So again, with the general fund, the one-time 5.8 million, and then with special revenue funds, it's 2.3 million. They're totaling about 8 million for all funds. This next slide is a snapshot of the 5-year CIP priority projects by department. It does talk about the funded and estimated unfunded amounts. We do show the number of priority projects, and then again, the total project costs. So again, this number will continue to be further refined, but it's pretty much very close there. But based on the current estimates and assumptions, we're looking about an estimated unfunded amount over the next 5 years, about 75.6 million. Again, we'll continue to have these updated. Okay, that leads me, one of the main requirement items is the GAN appropriations limit. There is a separate section in the staff report that talks about this, and then also a resolution. State law requires us to calculate and adopt this, a limit every year by resolution. It really just sets the ceiling of the amount of tax proceeds that a city can spend. The limit is adjusted annually by two factors applied together. It's either the change of population and the greater of the change in California per capita personal income, or the change in the local non-residential assessed valuation from new construction. For this year's factors, the city chose the percent change in assessed valuation in new non-residential construction of about 8.16%. And then the percent change, I think I went too fast there, a percent change in the countywide population of about, I believe it was about negative 0.14. Is that correct? So anyways, those factors do get added together when you apply them. The GAN limit of 91. It calculates to a GAN limit of 91.2 million. So really what that means is that, and then we have to look at what revenues of the city is subject to that limit. It's been determined about 50.2 million, which means we're currently $41 million under the limit. So that means we have substantial headroom, so there's no rebate or tax cut concern. So that completes part 3. Part 4, we're gonna move on to the other related personnel updates. We've summarized these personnel updates in 3 resolutions that's attached to the packet. So resolution 1, that includes our authorized positions, salary schedule, cleanup items to the personnel rules, which is further detailed in the staff report, adding the short-term disability, for unrepresented management and executive employees, along with asking council to renew the hiring incentive policy for that flexibility. Should those positions become vacant. Resolution 2 contains SEIU Local 620 side letter agreements related to the tiered health allowance and increases along with the long-term disability. And then Resolution 3 contains information about a new temporary overhire policy, which allows the authorization to the city manager or designee to temporarily double fill a position for succession planning, training, or knowledge transfer. There is some parameters in there that does require a written declaration of finding from the finance director or designee that there's actual savings to support that cost. So it's designed to be net neutral, cost neutral at all times. And so that's recommended there in Resolution 3. Okay, so that's part 4. Now we're going into part 5 here. This is just a brief look ahead. So these items are going to be coming back to council, in the next fiscal year. There's no action requested tonight, but just wanted to reflect the feedback that was given on May 19th. So it's a little bit more detailed in the staff report, but looking ahead, summer and fall 2026, we'll have our CIP update following the adoption of the DIF Nexus study, plus status of major capital grants, including the grant related to the San Jose Creek Multipurpose Path. Winter and spring of 2026-27, deferred maintenance facilities fundings policy. So we're going to return back with the formal adoption of that policy, which included the $1 million baseline reserve. Also looking at shared responsibility options on some of the facilities that are shared with our nonprofit partners, and also with including the capital campaigns. And then spring 2027, that's the pavement, value engineering, and long-term funding. So we'll get an updated pavement condition index, along with funding level scenarios presented with the annual pavement update. And then economic monitoring is just, again, we heard council's feedback, just analyzing, looking at those TOT trends, travel market, revenue per available room, RevPAR data reported. We'll incorporate those in the quarterly financial reviews as well. Then also, just being active on, looking at our tiered cost reduction measures, making sure they're maintained for early response if conditions deteriorate. So that's just readily available for us, and we can always bring back to council and discuss that at quarterly financial reviews. Okay, so that brings us to the formal recommendations, but I guess before we get here, we would like to see if council has any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rio. Question from council. Councilmember Reyes-Martin.
Thank you. I have a question about the Public Works Inspector position, since you're here. I wondered, and will this position help with things like quality control of the projects out there? Or is it more, or can it also help with kind of coordination in advance? And the reason I ask that is, I think specifically with some examples, since I've been on council, of some pavement projects where we've had to kind of go back with the contractor afterwards to like fix some striping or, things like that. Is that an example of something that an inspector would help kind of catch before that happens?
Councilmember Reyes-Martin, yes, the goal is by having an in-house and someone who's consistently on these projects that they do catch more. It is certainly possible that things still may slip through, so I don't anticipate them all to be. And the nature of our projects is that we can go back with those punch lists, and the contractor is required to repair them or fix them.
Great, thank you.
Councilmember Carriaco?
Just one. Is another potential benefit of this essentially changing from external accountability to having internal accountability in terms of making sure that pavement's done right the first time?
Councilmember Kyriaco, I think that there is truth in that for sure. Having internal staff and the pride in their work, and they're consistently working for Goleta versus all over, sometimes Southern California. And so knowing our standards, other areas, knowing our hot spots, I think that you do get a better work product when having the internal inspector. And I'll even add a little bit more. This inspector could also work on CAP projects. They can do encroachment permit inspections where right now we have a current inspector, but when he's on vacation, we do hire out another contractor that comes in. So I think there is a lot of areas for consistency related to our standards. And then also having these in-house allows us actually to update our standards and be more consistent so that, for example, if development builds out our infrastructure, it's being built, not only is there a standard that we want, but it's actually being built to those standards.
Thank you, Ms. Glitzer. A couple more questions. I have a couple questions about the reclasses. Who would be the best person to address those to?
We can decide once you ask the question.
Okay. Well, the first one I want to ask about is reclassing an analyst to a manager in the housing division. And I just want to confirm, what's the problem we're trying to solve there? Is it that we have a position that is going to be kind of capped out, stepped out, and it's an opportunity to give more responsibility and provide, a path? Or is it is it really more about we wanted to add another position in housing, and so in order to do that, we want to have one of them be a manager?
Yeah, thank you for that question.
Chicken or the egg?
I think it's both. So certainly it starts with the workload, and so the two are tied together. So the new position, we can talk about if there's questions about it and about the business case for that position and the workload in that division. But then that also relates to the current position that's there and the point you just made, which is now it would be a two-person division, and the new position would report to the current position, and so there is that extra responsibility. So that I agree with. I would also say, though, that what we're seeing in terms of the workload is not only an expansion of the workload and the need for two people, but a higher level of the type of work that is required. So it's both. It's the management of a position, but it's also the level of work that's being required of the single position that's there now.
Okay, so we have someone kind of doing work out of class almost.
Well, I didn't say that, but
it kind of felt like you were saying it without saying it. Okay, I'll leave that alone. And then for the HR manager, it's an HR manager / DEI officer, and we're reclassifying it to just an HR manager. Can you just kind of give me a short version? What's the problem we're trying to solve there?
So I think the position you're referring to is the HR analyst.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
One of them is, it's same class, same everything. We're trying to move towards less specific titles in the event that we want to move things around. So one example is sometimes you'll have 300 classifications and you really only need 200. So it's not good to create a new one for every time we need it. The other part of it is in the HR, we do have a lot of coverage, and part of it is, to have some redundancy, to have some consistency when people are out of the office. So instead of calling it the HR analyst for DEI, it's just going to be HR analyst, and there's no impact to the general fund. It's that work will still continue to be done. But from a recruiting standpoint, going into the future, we do want to make sure that our classifications and titles are more broad to cover more topics.
Okay, so we're not losing functionality in a position, and we're not losing potential capacity if the position becomes vacant and we need to fill it. The reason why I'm asking and the reason why I'm being very specific is I was one of the people that actually objected to this position being created the way it was back a number of years ago. I had really pushed that we would have a specific DEI office, someone internal that could do the job and was interested, and they would get some training. We'd send them to some conferences, get them some training, and then we've had a hard time at times keeping that position filled with that skill set. So I just want to make sure that we're not going to make things harder for us to do this type of work through this decision. So as long as I have some assurance of that, I'm fine with the reclass.
Yeah, and that's why we went through the process of evaluating what had been done in the past and what we want to see going forward.
Okay, thank you for that. And then perhaps for Mr. Rio, this pertains to the item about looking after our employees in terms of the healthcare cost and making them more whole when it comes to healthcare costs. What is the latest either cost increase projection or quote that we're getting for what healthcare costs are expected to go up for in the next fiscal year? Are we looking at a 10% increase in healthcare costs? 15?
Yeah,
whoever should take it.
Yes. Oh. No, just so when we factored all this in, this is as of June 9th when the packet went out. We had taken a 5-year running average based on what we had talked to our risk management folks and projections through our agents, and that number came to, I think it was 13%. So that's the number that we use to kind of model. And then Luke, I think, can share, or I can share, that the initial projections for next year are much lower. It's around just under 6%. But that hasn't been adopted yet, so that's
okay.
That's
the
the
only
draft.
reason why I ask is I work in HR, and one of the things that we're really seeing is it's getting harder and harder to just look back 5 years or even 3 years and accurately project, because the nature of healthcare, particularly preventative care and certain healthcare remedies for things like diabetes and other.
Risk pool, yeah.
The risk pool is the nature of it's changing. The cost of the medications, the popularity of certain medications is really changing, and you don't want to put people into a position of having to deny them certain choices. So are we, this is, I think, kind of a softball question, but are we working with Cal Cities and CalPERS on making sure that we're evaluating the choices and the options that we're making available, the way most consistently with where the trends are going?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
All right.
the other part, and just to expand a little bit, is we have to remain competitive in terms of what we offer for our employees. It's good recruitment, good retention, but we also have to be fiscally balanced. Obviously, the council depends on that, and that's why those graphs look as good as they do. But I think the other part of it comes to, it's part of it is, there's a lot of talk about whether there's going to be certain medications that are going to be limited. I think at the state level, we haven't had those conversations here. We haven't had to, but it's absolutely top of mind when we make these recommendations.
Okay. All right. That's all for me. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Yes, my question's actually related to the CIP. I understand we're going to take another look at this at a future meeting, but I did notice in the staff report, I just wanted to confirm with staff. My understanding is as currently recommended, that the Drive crosswalk beacon and Fire Station 10 were proposed to move to the long-term list, and that was based on kind of where current funding is. Is that correct?
Councilmember Smith, yes, that was our proposal, yeah.
Okay. And I guess we can deliberate on this further, but my recommendation would be at least to move those to the active list for now. And I know we'll have further discussion at the future meeting and then also in the next 2-year cycle. And I think to keep it active at least until the new MOU, on Fire Station 10 in particular, until the new MOU is in place. But that's my only question. Thank you.
Councilmember Reyes-Martin?
Thank you. One more question that's maybe just for clarification. On any of these roles that are new positions, I noted in the staff report and in the presentation that the comment was that the new staff are to sustain the existing workload, not to like add things. And I asked for clarification on that because, you know, we went through the work plans for each of the departments, and at that point we didn't consider new staff. So I just want to clarify or confirm that.
Thank you for that question, Councilmember Reyes-Martin. Yeah, that I believe is true for both. Clearly on the inspector position and the case that's been made for that being cost neutral and an exchange of an in-house, the cost that we're paying consultants for, that's the case. Our paving program is hopefully will be expanding as we go, and we'll have that conversation later, but it's consistently, the need is there right now. And then I would make the same argument, and relative to how I answered Councilmember Kiriakou's on the housing, there's just such a focus on housing in terms of the need and the requirements. That is not anticipating any changes in the future. That is work that's happening now, and the need for 2 positions. I would say it's primarily in the tenant protection ordinance and the amount of work that we're finding that comes out of that. It's in our affordable housing program and the amount of work that goes into that. And then the other issue that probably might be the biggest, actually, is part of the rebalancing, and that's why partly why Ms. Wells is here. But there is a ton of work in implementing the housing element, and so I think that we're proposing that some of that work goes to the housing division, but it's going to be shared. I mean, it's a team approach in planning, and long-range planning is still going to be involved. But I think the council has probably seen. That's not new work. The second the ink was dry on getting the housing element approved, Ann's division had to go into overdrive implementing all the programs. And so that's what's here right in front of us now.
Thank you for answering that question, because I was curious about that as well. I have a quick question on Public Works. That particular position, the inspector, position, I know in the past it's been really difficult to find engineers for certain in Public Works Department. So I'm just curious, is that going to be a problem? Are we looking? Do we have somebody in mind? How are we doing with that one?
Mayor Perotti, we were able to actually promote internally our current inspector after our previous inspector, who I believe was here more than 19 years.
Okay.
So it's not a position that actually opens up very often, at least for here at Goleta. And I would say it's probably a little bit easier to find inspectors. And it's something also we train in-house.
Okay.
So if they have, enough minimum quals, we can also train them.
Okay. Thank you. And I have a question about our sheriff's contract. We don't have to worry about it this coming year, but we need a new contract 2027. Is that when we start looking at it? And do we have any idea, looking into the future, what that might be?
So that is a multi-million-dollar question. And yes, we do have a renewal for the sheriff contract. We'll start in earnest later this year to start those discussions. But All I can say is we have a stipulation in the contract where it talks about a baseline increase, plus if there's any changes in the DSA, the Deputy Sheriff's Association, if there's any additional negotiated increases. As of now, we have constantly been probing with the sheriff's office to see, is there any movement? Do you expect anything? And so far, mum's the word. I don't know if that's going to be a 0% DSA, 1%, 2%, don't know. But we have caveated the staff report with using what we did use. We used a amount that I think it's 5.78 or 28 percentage. So that's factored in the modeling, but it would just be a wild guess at this point to add more than that. And so what we have done is, keep checking in. And once we have more additional information, we'll come back to council. But that term also has 2 one-year extension agreements. So we could still keep the same contract and then extend it by a year, or I'm sorry, 1 2-year extension.
That's right. Okay.
So that there's no risk in terms of, falling out of an agreement. It's just about, what it costs and what the council wants to make sure is funded.
Great. Okay. Thank you. I had another question on our library and the per capita. If anybody could, how are we doing with? Has the county? Have they? They're not. Have they said what the per capita would be?
So I stopped listening about 11 a.m. this morning, so I don't know if they actually took the vote. But all the information we had gotten in the last several weeks was that there was going to be roughly a 4% decrease in the per capita, bringing the per capita amount to an even $9.
Okay.
So that's been factored in. That's what we've been using because that's what's been relayed to us. Normally what happens with the county is we do a 1-year agreement, and oddly enough, it usually comes to us like 6 months after it was supposed to start. But, we were aware of it. We understand what's expected. But unfortunately, it has been one of those areas that's been targeted for cuts.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Yep.
And then I just have a quick comment. I know comments are usually at the end, but I just want to make it clear to staff that I hope there was no misunderstanding. I think I supported your request, Councilmember Carriaco, to look at vacancies, and but my intention was more for informational, and I hope it didn't cause any concern that we might not fill those positions. That certainly wasn't my intention. So I just wanted to let them know. Councilmember Carriaco.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My request was informational as well, just to make that clear, if it wasn't clear before. But I also have a question about the sheriff's contract. So we've learned in the last few weeks that some of the cities that we traditionally partner with when we're negotiating sheriff's contract renewals are at different stages of exploration with the city of Lompoc for a different type of contractual arrangement. And I just wanted to ask staff if we have any kind of preliminary concerns, questions, anything that council needs to be thinking about or reflecting on in terms of how those potential decisions could impact our ability to negotiate our next contract.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Councilmember Carriaco and members of council. Yeah, it is interesting to see that the city of Solvang primarily, but also Buellton to some degree as well, are starting to have those conversations. And I have been in conversations with the city managers from both those cities. I think we're certainly taking a wait and see approach. There's a lot to such a transition, and they have some work to do to evaluate it and have those conversations. So we're going to take a wait and see approach, I think, from our point of view and in how it affects any interaction we have to start conversations to renew the contract we have. I think it puts us in a maybe a little bit better position as we go and have those conversations with the sheriff. It's certainly, I think, sending a message to them. Solvang was clear about that. Some of the quotes I read in the newspaper about the cost for them and the feeling that they're not getting the value for the amount they pay. And so I think what comes out of that will be really interesting and information that will certainly, potentially could come up if we're negotiating, future extensions with the sheriff as well. So watch and see. The 4 city managers, we've agreed to start having regularly monthly meetings. So we're going to start that next month and meet monthly to share notes and talk among ourselves about what's going on in Solvang and Bealton and how that affects all 4 of us going forward.
Thank you.
Seeing any more questions before we open it up to the public? Do we have public speakers?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I do have 8 speaker slips. 4 of those slips are donating time to 1 speaker. So that's at the discretion of the mayor. It'd be 12 total minutes. Is that acceptable?
Yes.
For Mrs. B? Okay. So we do have 8 total speaker slips. For those of you on the Zoom webinar, please use the raised hand icon and I will call on you. Our first speaker will be Mrs. B. And this will be the speaker having 3 other people donating 3 minutes to her.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Dear Honorable Mayor Pro Tem Smith and the esteemed council. Thank you very much for respecting my ADA reasonable accommodation due to my disabilities. I, Mrs. B, on behalf of the Santa Barbara Tenants Union, Goleta chapter, is petitioning the mayor and the city council to fund and hire an additional full-time housing coordinator to better manage rent stabilization, tenant rights, and development demands. Actionable details and context. The core proposal, creating a dedicated housing staff role to focus on planning, development, rent stabilization, and the alignment of city and county ordinances to strengthen tenant protections, which to include all unincorporated renters. The fiscal context. This request is being made during the fiscal 2026-27 mid-cycle budget adoption, which allows the city of Goleta to adjust its 2-year financial blueprint. The underlining issue. The comment states that Goleta currently relies on a single staff member to handle all housing-related issues, which the SBTU argues is insufficient for community needs. Budget and program highlights. Affordable housing, all funds, $279K on page 16. This is incredibly low for a city dealing with a major regional housing crisis, which underscores my point that housing is currently underfunded and understaffed because this $279K relies on all funds, which includes outside grants. The city should aggressively seek additional state or federal housing administrative grants to help double this baseline program budget, thereby absorbing the cost for the permanent requested housing coordinator. Pending items, personnel change, 2 new positions, 1 net neutral, on page 28. This is addressed in my recommendations. Recommendation, I argue that housing is more urgent than whatever the city is considering. Option 1, reallocating one of the pending items. We note that on page 28 of the proposed mid-cycle budget, 2 new positions are currently designated as pending items. Rather than leaving these funds unallocated or assigning them to less critical needs, we strongly urge the City Council to formally and permanently allocate the funding of at least one of these pending slots to establish a full-time housing staff coordinator role. Securing a dedicated staffer now prevents costly, reactive emergency housing interventions later. Funding this role immediately via these unallocated slots and sustaining it long-term through a combination of developer fees and housing grants will ensure we can fully protect and strengthen tenant rights throughout our city. Option 2, utilizing community development block grants, CDBG. Cities often fund housing roles through federal grant pass-throughs rather than the local general fund. I suggest a hybrid funding model to make it more palatable. To ensure long-term structural permanency for this position, we recommend the city leverage a combination of the pending general fund staff allocations noted on page 28, alongside unallocated CDBG funds or affordable housing reserves. Tying this role to dedicated housing revenue streams guarantees its permanency without placing an undue long-term burden entirely on the city's discretionary fund, general fund. And my last option, and my favorite, cost offset via development impact fees, DIF. Goleta frequently updates its developer fees to offset city workloads caused by new buildings. I argue that developers should fund the housing coordinator staff position because a primary responsibility of this new housing coordinator will be overseeing housing planning, development, and building ordinance alignment. The ongoing cost of this permanent position should be systematically offset by DIF, generated by local projects. Using the pending budget slots on page 28 as an initial launch pad allows the city to establish the role immediately, while a fee recovery model will sustain it permanently. And I've seen these developer fees build beautiful housing developments in New York, and more importantly, give money to the tenants association so that they can gain knowledge regarding housing and tenant rights. And I want to say to Councilmember Carriaco, I appreciate your thoughtful comments, because that's what I was thinking about in terms of what has been discussed tonight. And as always, I thank you for your time and your leadership and allowing me to share my thoughts.
Thank you.
Our next in-person speaker is Stanley Trankoff, followed by Andrew Shafis.
I was worried I'd have to go after you, Mrs. B. Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council, members of the public, staff. I'm here today to respectfully ask that you consider investing in the staffing. We need to address the incredible challenges we face together when it comes to housing affordability. While I no longer live in Goleta, my work at Cause and personal sense of identity spans the region here in the 805. But I'm here also because I'm just a huge fan of the city of Goleta. You all have led the region in addressing some of the most serious issues faced by tenants like myself, tenants unlike myself. And while we've got a long way to go with the incredible challenges before us, I admire and respect the housing production, just sheer numbers, the insistence on affordability, the protections for tenants, and you've really modeled it when it comes to protecting tenants and working people. As a co-founder of the all-volunteer Santa Barbara Tenants Union, which works primarily in South County, and which I'm really excited has more recently in earnest launched a Goleta chapter. We regularly see tenants each week who are sharing their stories about having to pack in tighter, commute longer, commute farther, work longer, and make really difficult decisions about what we can afford. And I know I'm preaching to the choir, right? I know that members of the council, the staff, all of us here know that the rent is really high and that buying a home is out of reach for so many. And so today I want to lend my support for a budget allocation. I'm certainly not in the weeds on all of the considerations that you all are having to balance, but wherever it makes sense to hire additional staff so we can really take on this tremendous challenge in meeting our housing demands in and around this beautiful city. I know we can feel in our own ways the ways that the pain and suffering of the housing crisis hits home for each and all of us. And I've seen firsthand how staffing limitations can really hinder both, responsiveness to challenges around housing, but also visionary dreams and goals and aspirations that we can achieve. So today, again, I urge you to prioritize the hiring of staff dedicated to addressing some of these issues, and really appreciate your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Our next in-person speaker is Andrew Chafis, followed by Mary Michael.
Good evening, Council. My name is Andrew Chafos, and I'm a Goleta tenant. I'm here to comment in support of the City of Goleta hiring a new full-time staffer who would support housing policies and implementing said policies. It's my understanding that there's just one full-time staffer at the moment allocating to support housing policies in Goleta, and especially for this reason, I think it's imperative that the city spends money on another staffer so that existing and future housing policies can be implemented with sufficient support. Along the same line, I'm here again to advocate for Goleta implementing a rent stabilization program that is just as strong, if not stronger, than the one currently being worked out in Santa Barbara. As we know, this is one of the most expensive places to rent in the country, and I personally know several people in my apartment complex that have been pushed out due to the high costs of rent, specifically rent increases at the maximum legal amount being raised year over year. My complex consistently raises the rent that's basically just under the amount allowed by the Tenant Protection Act, which ranges to be about 5 to 10%. And my next door neighbor was personally pushed out by that, and I know several others that were facing a similar situation. Goleta tenants should also be protected by the same measures Santa Barbara tenants will soon benefit from, including stronger enforcement mechanisms of existing housing law via rent board or similar enforcement body. I'd also like to add, since the budgets was being discussed tonight, that rent stabilization programs across the U.S. typically fund themselves long-term when property owners pay a fee to the rental registry, though I recognize that there's an upstart cost. And on that end, I'd like to echo Mrs. B's comments, which included a recommendation to pursue grants and other funding sources to support just those additional housing staffers already, since it sounds like they have like a backlog of work to do. And also a future rent stabilization policy, especially with the upstart costs. I hope council hires another housing staffer and also starts seriously considering and moving in the direction of creating a strong rent stabilization program for Goleta tenants. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next in-person speaker is Mary Michael. This will be followed by Crescenda Silvers.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mary. I came here a month ago to ask for a rent stabilization ordinance and stronger tenant protections. I told you how frustrating it is to live here when the cost of living doesn't match wages, and it's hard to want to stay here when all of your community members continue to get priced out and you can't even afford to give back to where you live. So I also stayed last month till the end of the meeting, and I listened to you all get into engaged debate and give thoughtful questions about how to pay for these additional staff members. And while I really appreciated the really thoughtful questions and the careful consideration, I am here to tell you that there needs to be more urgency about how we treat housing. We need to get this additional housing staffing member. That needs to happen now. That needed to happen a long time ago. And we can't really afford to wait on getting that additional housing staffing member even more in the future. The cost of living here is already high. It's already too high. Renters are already desperate for a more affordable solution when it comes to housing. And landlords who are abusive are already making a killing, making so much unchecked profit, taking advantage of that desperation. The problem is already here and it's already festering. So again, we really need to treat this housing issue as a more urgent problem, and we need to move forward with hiring this additional staffing member and consider hiring more in the future. I also want to emphasize that delaying those kinds of staffing decisions, adding more housing staff, it's not a silent decision. Delaying that kind of gives the impression that the cost or that the quality of life of Goleta residents here is not your priority, and that abusive residents or abusive landlords can continue as they have. But taking it on as a more urgent problem, like approaching it more aggressively, trying to find a way to really figure out affordable housing here, that's how you show good faith to people who elected you and people that you're serving. So please move forward with hiring an additional housing staffing member, and please treat this as urgently as it affects the rest of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our last in-person speaker is Crescenda Silvers, and then we will move to our Zoom speakers. For those of you on the Zoom webinar, please use the raised hand icon if you wish to speak to this item.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. My name is Cressida Silvers. I didn't prepare anything. I really am just here in support of the other speakers and the additional hire of, expanding your housing department. So I want to support that in the budget. And I really couldn't even say anything to elaborate or improve on the comments that have already been presented. But I also wanted to appreciate Councilmember Kiriako's comments about the DEI position. And I just, it's the first I'm hearing about the change. And to me, and again, I may not fully understand it, but to me, it kind of sounds like you created the title, you created the position, had some challenges filling it or executing the work. And so now you're changing the title. And I really just want to emphasize that the community is paying attention, and that we hope that you are not, that by erasing the title and the letters and the words, that you are not erasing the work, or if the work wasn't fully being done, that you're not erasing the council's and staff and the city's understanding for the need for this work and the sense of urgency to continue to at least try to fulfill this work. So yes, the community is watching, and we appreciate your attention and your efforts towards it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That concludes the in-person speakers. We'll now move to the Zoom speakers. Olivia Uribe, if you'll please unmute yourself, you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
There you go. Trying to figure out all the Zoom controls.
I just want to say one quick thing.
No, you had your opportunity, and there's someone already on Zoom that wants to speak.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Olivia, are you on?
I am.
Go ahead.
Good evening.
Please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Olivia Uribe Mutal, and while I live in Carpinteria, I am a Dos Pueblos High School and UCSB grad, and my parents live in Goleta, and I spend every Sunday there, so kind of 1/7 Goletano. I work in local government, and I'm speaking tonight in my personal capacity. I want to commend both staff and the City Council on a thoughtful and fiscally responsible budget. And I just wanted to comment on the proposed staffing changes. As someone who works in local government, I've seen firsthand how dramatically both housing and emergency management responsibilities have expanded over the last decade. In housing, the state is no longer focused on just housing allocations and planning documents. It's focused on whether cities are actually implementing housing programs and delivering housing options. Cities are responsible for administering affordable housing requirements, responding to tenant protection issues, managing compliance obligations, and navigating an increasingly complex state regulatory environment. And also, emergency management has evolved beyond maintaining plans and coordinating drills. Today's emergency management professionals are responsible for regulatory compliance, regional coordination, disaster recovery, FEMA reimbursements, public preparedness, and organizational resilience. I myself have benefited as the emergency manager from 2 neighboring jurisdictions from the knowledge of your emergency coordinator, who really fills the role of an emergency manager. The recommendations in the staff report appear to recognize the level of responsibility these programs carry and help ensure that the city of Goleta has the capacity necessary to meet the state and federal requirements. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your continued service to the Goleta community.
Thank you.
I have no more speakers for this item, Madam Mayor.
Okay. All right, then we'll go into more council questions. I'm going to also close the public testimony portion. Any more questions from council? No? Okay. Okay, I guess we're ready to look at the recommendations. Mr. Rosen, shall we take them one at a time or read them, do it as a whole? There's quite a few.
Thank you, Mayor.
What do you suggest?
It's a good question for this item. I would actually recommend we have the clerk read all of them into the record. Because there's proposed changes that require a oral report under the Brown Act as part of staff's recommendation, we want to ensure before council goes into deliberation that those are provided, which is part of the recommendation.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Okay. Mr. Katai? Oh,
Sorry, can I get clarification if council supports the personnel requests?
say that again, I'm sorry.
Can I get clarification if city council supports the personnel request that's being recommended?
Sure, yes, absolutely, please do.
And just a note for the record, the recommendations can be read in that include the oral report, and then council can still deliberate on whether they want to include the personnel recommendations.
Good. I think that was, yeah, okay.
So I would actually recommend, I think, if we have our clerk just read them to accomplish that Brown Act requirement, and then council can deliberate on the specifics.
Thank you for your help.
Recommendation A, adopt Resolution 26 next in order entitled, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Goleta, California, amending the two-year budget plan for fiscal years 2025-26 and 2026-27 and five-year capital improvement program. And B, adopt Resolution 26 next in order entitled, the resolution of the City Council of the City of Goleta, California, adopting the city's GAN limit for fiscal years 2026-27. And C, receive an oral report read by the city clerk or staff summarizing recommendation for final action on compensation paid in the form of fringe benefits to city executive employees. 1, for all executive employees, amend the city's monthly flexible benefit plan allowance such that Roman numeral 1, effective July 1, 2026, for employees enrolled with two or more than one dependent, the allowance shall be $1,640 per month or 85% of the monthly premium cost for the CalPERS Gold PPO plan Region 2, rounded up to the nearest $10, whichever is higher. All other tiers remain unchanged. Roman numeral 2, effective January 1, 2027, for employees enrolled with one dependent, the allowance shall be $1,700 per month, or 85% of the monthly premium cost for CalPERS Gold PPO plan Region 2, rounded up to the nearest $10, whichever is higher, and employees enrolled with more than one dependent, the allowance shall be $1,730 per month, or 85% of the monthly premium cost for the CalPERS Gold PPO plan Region 2, rounded up to the nearest $10, whichever is highest. The employee-only tier remains unchanged. And 2, for all executive employees, effective July 1, 2026, increase the city-paid long-term disability benefit, which currently provides 60% of monthly earnings up to a maximum of $6,000 per month to a maximum of $9,000 per month, and establish a new employer-paid short-term disability benefit not currently provided that will cover 66.67% of salary up to $2,500 per week, with the city paying the full premium. And D, adopt Resolution 26 next in order entitled, the resolution of the City Council of the City of Goleta, California, amending the City of Goleta's schedule of authorized positions, the City of Goleta salary schedule and classification plan, and the funded positions compensation plan schedule for fiscal year 2025-26 and fiscal year 2026-27, amending the personnel rules, establishing an employer-paid short-term disability benefit for unrepresented management and executive employees, and authorizing the application of the hiring incentive policy to certain positions. And E, adopt Resolution 26 next in order entitled, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Goleta, California, approving side letter agreements with SCIU Local 620, amending certain fringe benefit increases. And F, adopt Resolution 26 next in order entitled, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Goleta, California, establishing a temporary overhiring policy and authorizing the city manager or designee to temporarily adjust adopted budgets and corresponding schedule of authorized positions as needed for a period not to exceed 90 days.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Good job.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to go into deliberation, or do we have, Mr. Rio, did you want to make any comments? No? Okay.
I was just going to add, Madam Mayor, I think to the point that Mr. Rio was trying to make, now that they've all been read into the record, which, as was pointed out, is a requirement, I think there is the ability now, when the council gets there, to approve all this on one motion, but at that point, included in the motion would be the positions or not.
Okay.
And that would be reflected then.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Yes, I support the staff recommendation. You know, we've been given a budget that fully funds our contingency and other reserves. I believe that the adjustments proposed are justified. And thinking about our current work in the planning department as it relates to the housing element, everything that's transpired in the last year in terms of mobile home parks and the ongoing future work as it relates to our general mobile home park ordinance, as well as implementation of our current tenant protection ordinance. I think that position is justified, and I think the only amendment I would request is to move the Jenna Drive Crosswalk, Beacon, and Fire Station 10 to the active CIP list pending further discussion. Thank you.
Councilmember Reyes-Martin?
Thank you. Well, I'll start with just some general comments. And I shared this at our last discussion, but again, a lot of appreciation, not just to Mr. Rio and his excellent team, but really to the whole city. I mean, this is, you know, a budget across all departments and all the great work that is done as a city, and it's really the city staff that help make that possible. And it does feel really great to be in a position and have a budget presented to us that is structurally balanced, that funds are reserved to our set policy, which again is 33%, which is really fantastic. And I wanted to say a little bit about that. I think for a city of our size, it is so important to have a level of reserves at that level. I think of it similarly to how we thought about it on the Goleta School District. As a community funded or basic aid school district, GUSD was often strongly advised to have a much higher percentage of reserve than might be typical for other school districts, because we, as a district being smaller, much more vulnerable to drastic changes that would affect, you know, any number of big funding sources. And that has served the school district well to have that level of a reserve and that cautious approach. It has clearly served this city well to exercise fiscal restraint when we need to be really cautious, to be really mindful, to have really great dialogue. I think everyone on this council brings questions and a different perspective that get us to a place where we are so thoughtful about not just one-time expenses, but ongoing expenses. And it really requires that level of discipline and saying no sometimes and planning for the things that are really important to us. And that's really a partnership between the council, staff, and our community. And so I think I'm really glad that we are in this position, and it is that balance. It's the balance of the positives that I've mentioned and the balance of the caution. We have a lot of CIP projects that we really want to be able to accomplish. Those all require funding. It requires a plan to get there, a plan to fund them. We know that our pavement needs, you know, we've got to continue to work on that. You know, I'm going to channel a little bit of Councilmember Kazan, who I know couldn't be here tonight, but shared his comments, and they're part of the public comment. You know, we know that we can't invest $20 million a year to get our CIP, the pavement condition index, I think. Is that what it's? PCI, yes. PCI, not CIP, PCI, up to the level that we want it to be. But we focus on what we can do. We can allocate $6 million. I agree with him that we should continue to strive to add more to that base amount every year to try to get ahead of it. I appreciate so much staff and their efforts to both value engineer and think of other creative options like the new equipment that are starting to roll out. That's a huge area that I know all of our residents really expect the city to address those basic services. As was mentioned, we've got some renegotiation of some major contracts coming up. So we should be cautious about our expenses, kind of thinking ahead to the possibility of that needing to be an increase. And so many other things that come up. So I take it as a big responsibility of the council and the trust that we have in our residents to continue to have this cautious and optimistic approach to our budget. At our last meeting, I had a lot of questions about the positions. Like with so many other things, I needed some time for it to marinate a little bit. And I had a lot of questions of staff for how this would work, what's the need, is it to address existing workload, what's the process that staff took to evaluate the need for additional staff. I really value that we have a lean staff, but a mighty one and one that has enough work, and we don't want people to be overworked, and we want to be able to plan for any growth on city staff. So with all the additional information and so many of my questions answered, I can support the staff recommendations as they were presented to us tonight. And again, just continue to have that kind of cautiously optimistic approach to what the next year and on will bring. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'm going to jump in. Oh, no. Usually I go last, but I have to say that first of all, I really want to thank past and present, current council and staff for always being so fiscally responsible. I mean, I think they laid the groundwork, the first council, city council. They had a lot of work to do, and they did it. And we've been in a good position for a long time, and I really appreciate the hard work that's put into this. I will say that I've had folks at different events tell me how they actually like watching our meetings from time to time, and that we seem so unified. That was the word that she used. You're unified. You may not always agree exactly, but you're respectful. And I think that's how you get things done, and I think that's why we are doing so well. So I'm very proud of the council and our staff, and I thank them for all their hard work. And, I was one of those at the last meeting where I was like, I don't know, there's so many uncertainties. I was worried. But after the report, and I know that we're going to be cautious moving forward because we just don't know. We don't know what federal funding might affect the county, which will then affect us. And that'll be social services. So, we're going to keep a watchful eye on all that and see where it goes. But I think we're in a good position. There was a time when the 33% reserve was questioned whether it should be not as much, and that didn't go very far. So I'm glad we have that reserve. So we're doing well, and again, thank you to everyone. Great presentation. Thank you, Luke. Councilmember Carriaco, and I will support the recommendations.
So I also was one of the people that had a fair number of questions last time, and I was also the council member that did ask that we get information on what positions were vacant. And the reason why that was important to me is I felt like if we were being asked to approve a budget that was going to look over a 5-year forecast and tell us that before you get to the end of that forecast, we project deficits, I felt I had a responsibility to have as many facts as possible so I could make an informed decision based on facts. 2 things have happened since then. One is I got the information I asked for about the positions, and the other is our staff has sharpened their pencils, looked closer, and are no longer projecting a deficit as soon as 2029. That changes things. And I think when you get more information, you should be able to be moved by facts. And I am moved by facts. So my request was for information. My intention was informational so that I can make a better decision, and I am prepared to support going forward with those recruitments and go forward with the positions. Particularly, I think it's important that we focus on 2 of the things that are really on people's minds. One is housing, and the other is the condition of our roads. These positions help us address both of those challenges. I do want to take issue a little bit with the depiction of how much money the city is spending on housing. You can't talk about housing without talking about homelessness. And this is a city that not that long ago did not spend very much money working to address homelessness. Now, not only are we spending somewhere in the neighborhood of, I think, $1 million on an annual basis, both in terms of prevention and general support for folks that are existing folks that are dealing with the existing challenge of homelessness. But probably the hardest council committee to get on might be the Homeless Standing Issues Advisory Committee. The 2 council members that are on that committee have a lot of tenure on that committee because there is so much interest on this council in doing something about that. And that's how you get cooperation and a 5-0 vote from a prior city council to do something like Buena Tierra, to do something when there were voices in the community that were telling us is that location really the best place for permanent supportive housing for homeless? Oh, that's the entrance to Old Town. What does that say? And is that really the element that you want in Old Town with where you're trying to go with Old Town? And this council and prior councils have really put the lie to the notion that supporting homeless individuals with housing means that you are disimproving a neighborhood, that you are making a neighborhood worse. I think that the resources and the effort that this city has dedicated towards homelessness and housing have made this community better and have made this community more tolerant and has made this community more welcoming. And so I tend to look at our housing investment in that larger sense of both housing and homelessness. And so I feel like, yes, we can do more and we must do more, but I do feel like we're doing better. And I do think perhaps we don't emote urgency with our comments sometimes. I think we are a reflective group. I think we are a group that doesn't like to one-up each other or try to, get the perfect quote for the paper. I think this is a group that really just thinks deeply and passionately about policy. And I'm really proud to serve with all of you. I think the other thing that we really care about right now is pavement. And it's not just because we like roads. We have an affordability crisis, not just in this community, but in this state. And when driving on a road is something you have to do to get to your job, you have to do to get food for your kids, to support your family, the condition of those roads really matters. I represent Old Town Goleta. That's a significant portion of my district. And so something like $150 million that we're investing in Old Town between new roads, bridges, bike paths, infrastructure, flood control improvements, is basically removing a tax on Old Town residents who can least afford to have a flat tire or broken axle because they hit a bad pothole. And so I feel like we're doing a lot better than we used to when it comes to pavement, and we still have a long ways to go. And there's different reasons, why we ended up where we are. But what matters is we're here now. We recognize that we can and must do better when it comes to pavement. And, I think, we're all asking good questions about how can we get there, and, how can we use value engineering. But we're also doing other things. I mean, we're not just doing value engineering. We're also accomplishing multiple objectives. When we pave a road now, we're not just paving it, exactly the way it was, and we're not just striping it exactly the way it was. We're doing things like putting parking in a way where it provides protection to people that are cyclists, which helps kids get to school safer, which helps seniors recreate more safely, which helps just folks get around more safely. And our lives are richer for it. And so I think we're not only doing value engineering, we're doing safety engineering, we're doing Vision Zero engineering. We're doing the things that we need to do to make this a great place to live, work, and play. And so I'm really proud of this budget, and I'm really proud of some of the things that we haven't talked about so much tonight that we're setting up. When we talk about the budget next year, we'll have a new multimodal train station. And I encourage us as we start entering this new fiscal year to think about that space not just as a place where you catch the train, not just as a place that'll be a transit hub to catch the bus. It can be an event space. I was just in Denver at their Union Station, and that train station had a DJ out in front. There was a bar. There was a food truck serving food. There were kids playing cornhole. Like that space, there's going to be a lot of room and a lot of opportunity to make that new public infrastructure a community space. And I would encourage us to look for those opportunities to partner with community members, to partner with local businesses, to fully utilize and activate that space. And I guess the last thing I'll say is I'm just so proud that this budget is going to allow us to have people staffing the new splash pad in Old Town. And this budget is going to provide the funding and the follow through on the new mural at the Carpeteria. That there's just so many little things that make a community a great place to live and makes a community a home that are happening. And they don't always get talked about. They don't always get attention. And I know it's really easy to focus on, deficits versus surpluses and, new positions and, what position's the best position. But I think it's important that we not just focus on the big things, but that we make time and create space for the small things that really matter in people's daily lives: the community garden, the mural, the splash pad, the bike paths, just the little things that will creep into our lives and make them richer. So I really just want to finish by thanking staff for working so hard, sharpening their pencils, being patient with us when we had questions, being patient with us when we didn't just say yes, because sometimes we're just constitutionally challenged saying yes the first time, because we need to go through our process and things need to marinate, as I think was the language that I think I heard earlier. when you're a small city, it's not easy always to just keep adding positions. You know, not that long ago, we added a lot of positions in Public Works. But I think when you look now at all the things, the big 6 project list that we're talking about now, where would we be with all of that if we didn't have the engineers that we hired 3 or 4 years ago? If we didn't create the succession planning in that department and create some leadership opportunities and provide some admin support. Sometimes you have to spend a little bit of money to fully reap the benefit of all that capital money that you're spending. Because you end up with a lot of inefficiencies and a lot of do-overs and a lot of delays. And I see Project Connect happening. I see our public works staff working so hard. I see our library staff working so hard with general services to get the new library open. Another thing we haven't really talked about tonight, but we're gonna have a new library at the end of this budget. That's gonna be so cool. And we did it together, and it'll be accessible to everybody, not just most to everybody. That library will be a place for all of us. So I'm really proud of our city. I'm really proud of this budget, and I'm glad to support it with the positions.
Thank you. So we will close the public hearing. We've already had the recommendations, so we should be entertaining a motion at this point. Is that correct? Yes? Oh.
That's correct, Mayor, and I just want to note, as staff read into the record earlier, there's a note in red at the top that council could consider the recommendations read into the record A through F. There's also a note that if council's inclined, it would be as amended to reflect the 2 new positions and the 4 reclassifications.
And Madam Mayor, I would also add, if the council concurs with Councilmember Smith's suggestion to move those 2 projects, the Jenna Beacon project and the Fire Station 10 from the long-range CIP to the 5-year CIP, that's something that staff can easily accommodate as part of the motion right now. So I would include that in the motion as well.
Well, I think I have a question about that. I support the Fire Station 10 for sure, bringing it forward. I think with the Beacon, it's not that I don't support it, but I would want to look at what are all of the kind of crosswalk improvement things. I guess we don't have the list in front of us for me to see, like, is that the best one on that list to move to 5-year? Did we move other ones to the shorter term? So I would just have some more questions about that one. But the fire station, I definitely.
Can I jump in on this
Yeah.
one? When we did the improvements to the park, that's right there, that one of the conditions I remember I kept saying, we have to get a crosswalk, which they put in, but we also really need to get a flashing beacon sooner than later, because there's so many kids that live right across the street, and they're older, and some of them are crossing by themselves. However, the speed on Calle Real is they can go fast. And sure, we can have law enforcement there, and we do as much as we can. But there's also a curve in the road when you're going west, that if kids are crossing, they're going fast. I see it as, as something, I can agree with moving it up. I'm surprised I didn't say anything, because I saw it and I went, oh, well, that's, I thought we were going to do that sooner than later, especially after the park now is very popular. Kids love it. They're going there a lot. So,
Well, thank you. With that, I can support both of those.
Okay. Good one.
So what do we need for the motion, since it's already been read? Is it sufficient to say so moved as amended, or do we need more than that?
Councilmember
As additionally
Martin.
amended?
Yes, I would say the motion would be to move forward recommendations A through F with the amendments regarding the change on the 2 items for the long-term CIP that were read into the record, to move that to the active 5-year list, and to include the 2 authorized positions and 4 reclassifications as amended.
That would be my motion.
I'll second.
Okay. Roll call vote.
Council members, please lock in your votes. Councilmember Reyes Martin.
Aye.
Councilmember Carriaco.
Aye.
Councilmember Kasdan is absent. Mayor Pro Tempore Smith.
Yes.
Mayor Perotti.
Aye. Ayes have it with one absent. Okay. Right. Do we need a 5-minute break? Yes, 5 minutes, maybe 10? Okay. going to bring this meeting back to order. If you could read the
That'll
next
be-
item into the agenda.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. That'll be item D1, policy to implement new Brown Act amendments regarding meeting disruption procedures pursuant to Senate Bill 707.
All right, thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council. So SB 707 enacted last year amended the Brown Act to require all eligible legislative bodies to adopt on or before July 1 a policy addressing how the agency will respond to disruptions in telephonic or internet service that prevent members of the public from participating remotely. This is a major update to the Brown Act, which is California's open meeting law. It reflects more modern meeting practices coming out of the COVID period. The biggest shifts are going to be around remote, public participation, and technology disruption procedures. And tonight's item is about putting those required policies and processes in place. So the city is now what's termed as an eligible legislative body, and all of the eligible legislative bodies are required to provide remote public attendance and real-time public comment during their meetings of the primary legislative body. So for us, it's the city council. The city does conduct hybrid meetings, allowing both in-person and two-way remote participation. This is consistent with SB 707 requirements, and this has been in place since 2020. We've been doing this since COVID. So to comply with state law, the city must formalize procedures for responding to disruptions in two-way remote public access. And thanks to BBK, our attorneys, they provided us Exhibit A to this report, which is a proposed council policy establishing a framework for responding to a disruption in telephonic or internet services when providing the required two-way remote public access to city council meetings. So the policy is intended to comply with the requirements of the amendment to the Brown Act. It clarifies the procedures for the presiding officer, the city clerk, presiding officer, the mayor, the city clerk, and staff to follow in the event of telephonic or internet service disruption. We've been through that a little bit. It ensures staff makes and documents good faith efforts to diagnose and restore two-way remote public access as quickly as possible. It defines how and when the city council may reconvene, either by continuing the meeting or adjourning if service is not restored. So just to kind of walk you through how this might look, I'm going to ask David to share here. And this is their policy. This is in the proposed policy. So the presiding officer or clerk will announce the disruption to the public. And then the presiding officer shall call for a recess of the open session and may convene the legislative body in an authorized closed session consistent with the Brown Act. So there's a lot of things around that too, you know. The recess shall last for 1 hour or until service is restored, whichever is earlier. During the recess, Goleta staff shall make a good faith effort to diagnose and restore the disrupted service. So in reconvening the open, the next page. So in reconvening the open session, after the expiration of the hour, if service has not been restored, the presiding officer or clerk shall report on the status of staff's efforts to restore remote access services. And the city council may reconvene to do either A, B, or C, and that is adjourn the meeting or extend the recess to allow staff more time to make a good faith effort to restore remote access services, or C, continue the open session portion of the meeting by adopting by a roll call vote the following or substantially similar finding. And that finding is, the city of Goleta has made good faith efforts to restore telephonic or internet service in accordance with its adopted policy, and the public interest in continuing the meeting outweighs the public interest in remote public access. Upon adoption of the finding, the council may continue the open session portion of the meeting despite the fact that remote access services has not been restored. You know, so remote public access is here in the meeting for those people that are participating remotely, but we do have other venues for the public to watch our meetings as well.
Yes, there also is the city's YouTube page, as well as the city's stream on the cityofgoleta.org website, and Channel 19, of course.
So staff's before you with a recommendation to adopt resolution number 2026 next in order, entitled "A Resolution of the City Council of the City of Goleta, California, adopting a new council policy addressing disruption of telephonic or internet service during the city council meeting." But before that, I did want to ask our city attorney, which they provided a lot of information for this, if he had anything to add.
Thank you, Ms. Lopez. Nothing to add. I think, as Ms. Lopez described, we have a lot of new changes to the Brown Act and potentially more coming in the next year or two in light of this bill. So this is a necessary component, but it's kind of the tip of the iceberg on everything the clerk's team is doing to get ready for a July 1st date in which a lot of these new requirements go into effect.
I have a question on, this does not pertain to our commission and commission meetings or committee meetings. Do they have, they don't, that's, no.
The, according to this, the eligible legislative body is the city council.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Someone like to make a motion?
Or public comment?
Oh, public comments.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I have no speaker slips. For those of you on the Zoom webinar who wish to speak to this item, please use raised hand icon and I will call on you. And I'm seeing none, Madam
Okay.
Mayor.
And entertain a motion?
I would move that we adopt resolution number 26 next in line, entitled "A Resolution of the City Council of the City of Goleta, California, adopting a new city council policy addressing a disruption of telephonic or internet service during city council meeting."
Second?
Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Council members, please lock in your votes. Councilmember Reyes Martin,
Aye.
Councilmember Kiriakou,
Aye.
Councilmember Kasdan is absent, Mayor Pro Tempore Smith,
Yes.
and Mayor Perotti.
Aye. Ayes have it. Okay. All right. Okay. Do we have any council comments or standing committees? Thank you, Ms. Lopez. Thank you. Nope. Okay. Anything to report out? City Attorney? Mr. Rosen?
I've got one. I just I want the council to know our office is tracking. There's a flurry of activity in Sacramento right now with some of the pending legislation. So our office is looking into that. Of course, unsurprisingly, there's a fair amount having to do with housing. And I'm particularly interested in some of the transit-oriented development changes that are making their way through the legislature. Yeah. And then I also just wanted to wish the city luck on the drone show. I'm sorry I can't be there this year. So happy 4th of July.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor, I actually had a
Happy
council
4th of July
comment.
to you.
I actually did have a council comment.
Go ahead.
Can we go back? Okay.
Yes.
I just wanted to note that on Thursday, June 4th, I attended the Bold Futures Brunch for Girls Inc. And also thank you to Councilmember Reyes Martin for being a sponsor of that event. And then on the 5th, I attended the Communify Annual Champions Dinner in my capacity as chair of the board of Communify. And that's it.
Okay. Okay, if we have nothing else, I will say meeting adjourned.